I'd like to welcome you all to this evening. It's a talk on the courses that we're offering at Metavision, particularly the higher education, our new higher education courses, our graduate diploma and our master's program. But before we go into this, I'd like to just acknowledge the First Nations people, the oldest people who have to continuously inhabit their homeland in our earth, on our earth. And I just want to acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging. And for myself, I'm on Gundungurra country. You might like the nation of the Gundungurra people here. You might like to, just for a moment, take a moment to think of the nation on the land that you are upon. I acknowledge how they have cared for the land for so many thousands of years. And I very much acknowledge their wisdom and rich culture and hope that we can learn from it. So what I'm going to do tonight is talk to you a bit about Metavision and the approach that we have here, and why how it's come about a little bit, and why we have this approach. And then I'd like to ask a couple of people to come in. One of them is a graduate who's working in the area. I'd like her to be able to just say something about how she's translated the work that she's, the material and the experiences she's had at Metavision, and how she's translated that into a working environment. And also, as we begin, I'd like to introduce Rhys Jones here, who is our IT person. He's going to be supporting this process. And I'd also like very much to welcome Jeff Berry. He is the academic director for our higher education courses and has very recently joined us. And I'm so happy to be able to introduce you to him tonight. Thanks, Jeff. Would you like to say a word or two?
Sure, thanks, Christina. I'm overjoyed to be joining Metavision and very excited about the new chapter in their ongoing history of higher ed. Higher ed is my passion, holistic visions, really what I feed upon, and you know, being involved in the training of psychotherapists and holistic counselors is something I think is just a wonderful thing to be able to do. So I'm very, very thankful that Metavision exists, and really looking forward to hopefully meeting as many of you as possible. And I'll be here through till the end. If there's any questions specifically about higher ed, I'll try to help answer those. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes, so, so please put your questions in the chat box so that we can look at them and try and answer as many of them as possible. You'll find the chat box down at the bottom of the screen. So what is Metavision? You know, why Metavision? Metavision, the word itself, it's a word that encompasses a vision that's holistic, that it means a holistic way of perceiving what's above, what's below, what's around, seeing much more than the sum of the parts. It's a holistic picture. So Metavision arose from from the work that I've done. I'm the founder. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. I'm sorry. I'm Christina Nielsen, the founder of Metavision, and I have been teaching and developing the course, the foundation of the course that is in the higher education curriculum over the last 18 years at Metavision, and it's grown out of my clinical work, as did the word Metavision. I was doing supervision for junior doctors in a palliative care unit. And I thought it wasn't supervision, it's a bigger picture. So the notion of holistic is at the base, is an underlying part of what we bring at Metavision. And we've even included it in the mission that we took to higher education. When we say the Metavision Institute is dedicated to transdisciplinary holistic education that enhances the human potential in the co-evolving of nature, culture, and society in sustainable ways. It's quite a big vision and mission, and to get that through higher education was really something. But it is the underlying impulse that has begun, that lies at the bottom of the whole curriculum, the whole course, and our offering to the world. Today I was talking to somebody and they said, why have you spent the last 20 years of your life developing Metavision? It's been a struggle, it's been stressful at times, and challenging at very many different times. And I thought, well, that's a very good question to ask me, that I'd like to share with you, because I feel that I have felt for a very long time that the times in which we're living is really extraordinary. And it's crucial that at this time, we as many of us who can help put an oar in the water to help paddle towards a new consciousness, a new paradigm. It's a time of enormous crisis, really. In fact, today I was working with a graduate of Metavision who said, it's really a revolution. We're working towards something new. And there's a lot of tension, a lot of struggle, and a lot of difficulty at the moment. Those of you who are in Melbourne would be feeling the crisis of the COVID situation, but we're all feeling the crisis of the situation of the earth, and the climate change impacts. Needed. It's that recognition that we are in very special times, and it needs all of us who are ignited by this vision to bring something more holistic to the world, so that there can be a healing and a more cooperative way of working together. So it's very interesting. I think that this this quote is very helpful to underpin where we are and to indicate where we're needing to go. He says fragmentation is now very widespread, not only throughout society, but also in each individual. And this is leading to a kind of general confusion of mind, which creates an endless series of problems and interferes with our clarity of perception so seriously as to prevent us from being able to solve most of them. That's just a profound statement to me. And I think our task is to see if we can work towards solving some of these. And one of them is to develop a holistic view, a lens through which we look, that sees not only the world in which we live as in a holistic way, but the human being as well. And that's what we teach at Metavision. Following this fragmented state of being, we have I'm very aware that there's a soul hunger and a spiritual thirst in people. I see them in my clinic. I felt it in the clinic. Sorry, somebody's just arrived. In my clients. And I think, how do we meet this yearning in the person in front of me? So to develop a holistic perception, we all have it to some degree already, and it needs training as well. So the Metavision model is the foundation, or has arisen out of the work that's happening at Metavision. And you'll find more about this on the website. One of the things that's very important to me in working with another is to recognize that the person sitting in front of me is a very living, alive human being, full of thoughts, longings, and struggles. And how can we meet that person as fully as possible? Jeff, would you like to make some comment? I feel like I've just lost my train of thought a little here. So, that's caught you, hasn't it?
I was just answering a question, but that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look, I've actually, for the last 2 days, I've been logged into the Australian Childhood Foundation conference on trauma and on helping to create effective therapeutic paradigms for children who have suffered trauma, and also adults whose childhood trauma has continued to affect them. And, you know, not only are we seeing the numbers of general mental health issues presenting in, you know, in general adult society increasing, and, you know, COVID's a big part of that, but I think there's more to it. The sort of awful impasse we've hit in a lot of political spaces, and also definitely the climate crisis. Somehow just everywhere I look at the moment, I think these two phrases you've put up there, Christina, are just really crying out. It's soul hunger and spiritual thirst. And I think that anything that we can do to support people to have those appetites whetted, and to, you know, to help people to grow in that way, in that holistic way, and then therefore to radiate with their own sense of growth, healing, if you like, or empowerment, then, you know, we can be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Regardless of what kind of bigger picture aim we might have, the work itself, the work of approaching trauma at one end and evolutionary impulses at the other, and everything in between, the work of approaching that with compassion, with curiosity, with acceptance, sometimes with playfulness, sometimes holding grief, but always, you know, looking for a way to help people through dark times, and also to, you know, to their own growth and their own empowerment, their self-empowerment. Anything we can do in that space is a great thing to be doing. So that'd be my phrase for the moment.
Thanks, Jeff. Yes, thank you. So one of the things we focus on very much at Metavision is developing our own self-awareness, so we can be fully present to the other as a being of body, soul, and spirit, as a being of subtle energies, with a field between us that is alive, that we can plug into, so that we can start to read the signals of the process that's wanting to unfold in the person that we're with, so that we can support that unfolding process with a curiosity, as Jeff mentioned, and also a not knowing mind, because the wisdom lies within the human being. Our task is to see it and to support it in its unfoldment. So the training starts, the course, the way we run the course is in intensive blocks. We attempt to, we teach holistically, as well as talking about the holistic lens and the holistic human being. So the curriculum is built in such a way that it progresses from from unit to unit. We have intensive blocks where we're coming together as a group, COVID allowing, and creating an environment that supports learning and collaboration and peer learning, that enables people to try things out and to work it very experientially, and to go then to progress through the stages of the course, from developing a holistic worldview, understanding the importance of the times in which we live and an evolution of consciousness, to starting to work with the skills that are needed to be able to unfold the messages that are present in the person and in ourselves that we're with. So we work largely with process-oriented psychology. There's a lot of influences you'll see in this Metavision model on our approach, and there's a lot of different places that it can have its expression. I have here been joined by Luella, who's just come in. She's a graduate of Metavision, and I just asked her if she'd like to drop in for a few minutes to share something of her experience and where she's taken the work.
So thanks, Christina. Look, I did the Metavision course probably about 15 years ago. No, 13, 12?
Can't be. Anyway, whatever
a long
it is.
time ago. And I came to it through general practice. So I was a general practitioner. And I'd actually, as a doctor, yeah. And I'd sort of left general practice really because I just found it, to be perfectly frank, terribly boring. But through my own personal experience of ill health, I became fascinated by the mind. And I started to look at other courses. So I thought, look, I'd really love to do some psychotherapy. That sounds perfect. So I looked at a lot of other courses around, and they all just seemed to be quite pale. They were very much about, studies and statistics. And I accidentally happened to fall upon Christina, because I live in Bowral as well. And I was really fascinated by what she was saying. And so I ended up doing the course. And I have to admit that when I first enrolled, I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to finish this course. But anyway, let's give it a go. Well, can I tell you, it was honestly, at that stage was 2 years. It was probably the best 2 years in so many respects of my life. I absolutely loved it. It just was wonderful and full on so many levels. And what it's given me, it's more than, you end up more than just a psychotherapist. So I actually ended up going back into general practice, but really only doing counselling and psychotherapy. But essentially it's sort of mind-body medicine. And what it allows me to do is it allows me to see the human in the machine, which is just another way. And I was listening to what Christina was saying before. It's and some words from a New York essayist called Anatole Broyard sort of constantly ring in my ears. And a lot of it is, of course, around medicine, because that's my background. But he was lying in bed dying of prostate cancer. And he writes, he just wishes that at once a doctor would come in and survey his soul. Because medicine itself has gone down the route that so many other of our professions and what have you in the world have gone, where it's very much the only thing that matters is what you can measure. Yet you can't measure the qualities of kindness, the qualities of compassion. Those things are very difficult to measure, yet they're the very things that we actually need in our world. So not only has Metavision helped me in terms of my practice as a doctor, but so, for example, with a group of people in the Southern Highlands, we've started up a domestic violence hub. Now, Metavision has given me confidence to say, this is what we need to do in this hub. These are the qualities we need to embody, because so often some of these services totally are about how many people go through the door, what's the latest model, what's this, what's that. And again, what they sort of forget is, how do you actually bring a woman and their children through into a new way of being in the world? How do they find meaning in life again? How do they follow their process?
But how do they follow their process? So that's the very important central part to what's happening, what we train in the Metavision courses, that you can learn to really follow not only your client's process, but your own. So there's a great emphasis on inner work and developing self-awareness through experiential exercises throughout the course at every step of the way. So if we're wanting to learn how to unfold a message in a body symptom, for example, or in a dream, we work with ourselves and we work with our peers in the class so that you can interact really experientially and learn through your own inner experience, as well as learning the theory, as well as having assignments, as well as being able to articulate what you're learning, as well as reading widely and discussing and disagreeing with each other and agreeing and building your own understanding. That's what's important to me, that you listen to yourself and ask yourself, what do I think? Absolutely. And how can I use the skills that I've been trained in here to read the subtle signals that are indicating what's wanting to happen in the moment, what's wanting to unfold, and where the life of the person that I'm with is wanting to go towards greater individuation, as Jung would say, to following a teleological or following the arrow of time, as Brian Cox, the physicist, would say. Everything is unfolding and moving towards something. Just as I said before, now in these times, we're moving towards something very new. We're in a very big cross current, and in that cross current, something is emerging. And what we're trying to capture here is some part of that emergence. This may not be right for you. You need to ask yourself, is this where I really want to be? Because it isn't the cozy fires of orthodoxy that you'd be sitting by, for example. It isn't really the full mainstream. But what's important for Metavision at this point is that this course has developed and established itself well enough so that we have actually successfully been able to take it through the incredibly rigorous assessing of TEXA, the Tertiary Education Quality Assurance process. It's not easy for a small school like us to achieve this with a mission like the one that I read out to you before, but we've done it. Why is that? I think it's because people are sensing that there really is something new that needs to emerge, and there is something here that's also grounded in practice, grounded in theory that's developing more and more people, as Luella said, are looking for something that's got heart and soul in it, but not only, that's also got spiritual wisdom in it, that can draw on ancient traditions, that also puts it all together in a coherent way that builds through the course. So we do look at using process-oriented psychology. We look at, as I said before, working with dreams, body symptoms, how to unfold, how to have a structure to work with when you're working with a person that enables you to follow the person's process with the eye of a detective closely, but keeping yourself out of it. And then we work with the whole biography, the whole lifespan of the human being. We work with grief and loss, death and dying. We work with addictive tendencies. We work with research as well. And as part of the course too, there is now the requirement that you spend 100 hours each year in a practice, in a placement. So we also prepare you for that and set you up to be able to do that in the first year, which is the graduate diploma year. The graduate diploma is 1 year and the master's is 2, but it's a nested course. The graduate diploma, if you wish to leave at the end of that year, you can, going out with a graduate diploma, or you can, if you've come into the graduate diploma because you didn't have all the requirements to get into the master's course, you can then roll over into the master's course and finish the 2 years. I recommend doing the 2 years, of course, because I've seen the course work that way. It also gives you access to membership with PACFA and registration with PACFA, which is a very good thing in the field of counselling and psychotherapy. Are there questions that need answering? I can't see the questions. Reese, are there any questions there?
Yeah, we've got heaps if you want to move on to questions now.
Okay, well, let's start looking at questions and see where the conversation goes. I want to know what people are wanting to hear about. Within the higher education course, we will be getting some new teachers in too, because one of the requirements to teach in a master's course is that you need to have a PhD. Certainly Jeff will be taking a big part in the teaching. We have David Russell, who's been a professor at the University of Western Sydney, teaching critical psychology and Jungian studies. He comes in and teaches something of the foundation of the approach that we have in process-oriented psychology, which has grown out of Jung's work, Carl Jung's work, and he introduces also Freud. He also helps with supervision. There are teachers who have the highest qualification in process-oriented psychology, which is as I said, it's been developed by Arnold Mindell, who's here. You'll be able to see him. He's developed many things, process work and the notion of deep democracy. He says that as his work has gone on and grown through his understanding of quantum physics and his study of Jungian psychology, he's brought these together with Eastern spirituality. He's developed the idea of process mind. He says this can be experienced as a kind of force field. It's an active intelligent space between the observer and the observed. It's both you and me and us that we share. And I think that's a very important part of the training, to be able to feel, to recognize and to be moved by the force field in relation to working with another and in developing our own presence. The more presence you have, the more you're able to tune into another. So teachers in process work have gone through the most rigorous studies in process-oriented psychology. One is Heike Heimann. There'll be others as well. We're still getting some of the ones for the second year.
Hi, Christina. I was just wondering if you are teaching at the course. Do you know? Well, that would be so wonderful.
Thank you. As I don't have a PhD, it's very difficult. It's not so easy for me to teach in the masters, but together with Jeff, I can.
So will you teach in the graduate, the first year?
Pardon?
Will you be teaching at the first year?
Yes, I will be. Jeff, would you like to speak?
Yeah, we're going to team up. And actually, there's a couple of other teachers that are just very experienced practitioners. So basically, we're just forming really basically just small teams of 2, where at least one of the teachers is a practitioner and one has a PhD. Yeah,
that's right. Because this is it's bringing the academic and the practitioner side of it together. That is the development that's really going to be happening in this higher education field. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just would like, I was with you. I was with you.
Richard, hello.
Yeah. And your practicing with us for me was just the most valuable, incredible learning experience. So I think, yeah, it would be good to have that.
Thank you, Bridget. Yes.
Yeah.
I must say that the work has grown out of my clinical practice, and I have been practicing for 40 years. So there's a lot of, I love doing supervision because there's a lot of experience that I can draw on. Thanks, Bridget.
Yeah, I think you're a real master at it.
And I've seen a couple of the backgrounds of some of the other practitioner teachers too, and they're really experienced.
Yes.
So I'm very excited about that combination. I think the combination of the practitioner and the really highly qualified people working together is going to be great.
So we do an intensive block where everybody comes together. If COVID permits, we have had to put it all online, which has been also very difficult, but we've managed it. So then you go home with a study program, our e-learning platform, and you work through the topics that you've been introduced to, and read the materials on the on Moodle. We call it Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, can help you find information you need, and then you write your assignments or do them in whatever way is needed. Now, it's difficult to know exactly how much time per week is required, because it is that has a certain amount of self-study. That's got a lot of self-study in it, with dates for your submission of assignments. Somebody was talking to me yesterday who said they were doing the STP. They said they thought it really took 2 days a week to focus on the work, and it might be a bit more for the masters. I can't say exactly. Excuse me. Excuse me, Luella, would you have any experience? I don't suppose so.
Well, not of doing the master's course, except to say that I'm very keen to do it, because it just sounds so absolutely fabulous. And I think the thing that, because when I did it, it was an advanced diploma. So this has come a long way since then.
Yeah.
But what it did was it just opened up a door to a whole new way of seeing the world, which was really absolutely fantastic. And it just allows that sense of ongoing learning, that curiosity. It really sort of tickles the curiosity of of the world, of life, of being human. And so from my perspective, it was, as I said early, it was genuinely one of the most fantastic things I've ever decided to do. And as I said, I'm actually very keen to sign up to do the Masters myself.
Good.
Because it was so terrific.
Christina, there's been a few questions through the chat roll from people asking about PACFA accreditation. Do you get it just from the grad dip, or do you have to complete the Masters, and can you get it with the specialist training?
You can get it with this. You can get it with specialist training. You can get it with the Masters. You can only get it with the grad dip if you have already another qualification that would enable you to work in the field, in counselling, psychotherapy, social work, psychology, something like that. But with the graduate diploma, 1 year doesn't meet the training standards for PACFA for a person to become a practitioner. It needs 2 years. Thanks, Jeff. That's great. Any other questions?
We have an online course ready, which we're just really hopeful we don't have to use. I have just come just before this outbreak. I literally slipped out of Melbourne the day before it broke. I'd just run a live retreat down in Victoria, and the work that we were able to do together as a small group of people in one space was just so profound and moving and touching that I think we should do everything within our power to recreate a small communitas, a small group of people working together. Obviously, you know, COVID safe workplaces, it's something pretty much all of us have gotten used to. So all protocols will be put into place. But I would have to say that ultimately we are in the hands of the gods and the goddesses, i.e. we're just hoping for the best. If we have to roll out an online course, then we can do that. We've got around about 6 weeks to go from now to kick off. Sadly, as we all know, Melbourne just got lumped with another week.
Right.
We're just going to have to hope that, you know, that they curtail this and that there's no new outbreaks. The work that I've been doing over the last few years has been very hands-on, very community-based. It's been Southern New South Wales. We've been very lucky. But we had to do a lot of online training for our carers last year. And so, you know, we managed to do that. But then as soon as we could, we all got back together again. I think it's just become a movable feast nowadays. I'd just say just stay in touch. But we're definitely going to plan strongly to put this together as a live in-person retreat in mid-July.
It's a very tricky question because the course is a coherent whole, which is what I was saying at the beginning. And so you can't just drop in and out of units, but you can take longer to do a year. You might like to do the first year and spread it out. I'm not sure we've done this in the past. People have deferred and come back, and we have managed to keep the whole sequence going for people. How it'll work exactly with the master's program, we're not 100% sure yet, but we will find how it can be done. And because we're not very large, we're small, there is a flexibility. But we offer, so the way we offer the first 4 units, for example, in the first intensive, then the second 4 units in the middle of the year in the second semester, that makes up the first year. Now, if you just do the first 4 units and take it over the whole year, then you'll have to wait until halfway through the next year to start the second 4. So, you know, that can really make it go out. But there may be other ways. This is a topic I really want to sit down and talk about with Jeff. We haven't had time yet.
Yeah, that really accords with my previous experience also of administering and managing higher ed courses. Is if there is something that has to be done in sequence, there might be a time when you simply have to sit out a semester to wait for the sequence to come back in. Having said that, we're very hopeful we'll be rolling out in mid-July. We're then very hopeful we'll be rolling out a new cohort in early 2022, early next year, which will mean that actually there will be consecutive courses rolling.
That's true.
And as that continues, that will make it more and more flexible for students. Yes, that's correct. I mean, it's what you would technically call a master's by coursework, and you're right, just with a small amount of research. As a person with a research background, I love it very much. I'd like to think that we'll be able to extend ourselves in that area, and we're definitely going to be extending ourselves as an institute into the area of research and also publication of research outcomes. It's part of the higher ed landscape. So what we'll be starting to do is actually to have events that work around research and outcomes that we'll be inviting postgrad students along to. But yeah, as far as an actual postgrad by research goes, that'll be down the track.
Yes, so we have, the first unit is looking at the influences, the development of counselling and psychotherapy as a profession, and the influences on our particular Metavision approach, and how we've stood on the shoulders of wonderful people that have gone before us, and it's developing. The second unit is inner work. So we really put a big focus on inner work throughout the whole course, so that we develop our awareness and also skills in being able to encourage our clients to do inner work as well, because it's really becoming, training awareness of your own inner processes as well as the external circumstances. The third unit is looking at the holistic human being as a being of body, soul, and spirit, as a being with subtle energies that make sense of a lot of what's happening, and how the new sciences and quantum physics is helping to support this understanding. The fourth unit is an introduction to process-oriented psychology, and lays the foundation then for the next 3 units on process-oriented psychology, looking at dreams, body symptoms, working with conflict and rank, power and privilege, working with relationships, working with applying this approach to addictions and trauma, which are modules in the second year. We do also look at early childhood, some attachment theory, but early childhood, looking at biography, and through the spiritual science lens, or the anthroposophical or Rudolf Steiner's lens, of the metamorphosing human lifespan, which, because we're looking to see the organizing principle that is working through every individual's life uniquely. And if you can help a person to tap into that, then life flows a lot more easily, and you know how to deal with the issues that cross your path constantly throughout life, which helps us grow with awareness, and then reach old age with grace and dignity, hopefully. So I've mentioned working with trauma, death, dying, grief and loss, addictive tendencies, and preparing to practice. Ethics, of course, is in there. And then these 2 placements, 1 each year, and also getting at least 40 hours. PACFA requires at least 40 hours of your own face-to-face client work. And we ask you to submit videos, and we're looking to see how you are really working with the structure that we're teaching. So that was a quick gallop through. I think you're not the only one trying to understand the differences. I was working in the with PACFA in their psychotherapy working party, exactly trying to tease out what is psychotherapy, and what are the training standards required for psychotherapy, and what are the training standards required for counselling. Now, the general attitude is that counselling is more dealing with the consensus reality, day-to-day matters, and psychotherapy is dealing with the more intrapsychic issues, the things that go on in our soul life, if you like, more deeply. Now, what I roll them both together, because what we're doing with our approach is following the process of the person, which means rather than any sort of pathology or anything else, but we'll take into account a pathology, but it's working with what's with the person in the moment, which can be sometimes an issue in everyday life, in consensus reality, or it might be a very deep issue that goes right back, that needs deep work. And what we're training is both, to be able to read different levels of awareness simultaneously and work with them. So the terms counselling and psychotherapy for me is more, is talking about, if you look at the word, psyche is soul, or has its origins in the term soul, or psyche means soul, I should say, to to work with soul in a therapeutic way, that makes sense. Counselling, it's usually seen as more, as I said before, everyday matters. I was going to say superficial. That's something that it's not superficial, but to counsel somebody suggests you're giving advice. It's certainly not something we do. So I have a bit of trouble myself with these words. And I think the field is trying to really differentiate them too, is what I'm saying. Yes, very great question. You know, a government accredited master's gives you a much better ticket than without a government accreditation, because it's more, you can apply for jobs in government and government organizations. Also, it's more readily acknowledged by the general population and other professionals. But we've got Luella sitting here who has been very involved in starting Pop-In, and in fact was very keen to make sure that there was at least one graduate from Metavision working there. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Look, in terms of where you can go with the masters, because honestly, it's hard to almost imagine a place that wouldn't value, or you couldn't value add with what Metavision teaches you. I mean, even just, as I said, we've just started up this Pop-In, which is a domestic violence hub in Bow. I mean, even just sitting with people in the room on a board, it just allows you to understand and develop relationships with people so that everything goes more smoothly. It's on every single level. I think the master's degree gives you value add. And honestly, I just can't imagine. It's hard to imagine a profession that wouldn't value it, actually.
Yes, that's right. You can take this work into so many different places. But the other thing that I've noticed, because I do quite a lot of supervision for graduates, and they're going into very diverse places and getting work. But what's happening too is, I used Luella as an example, but there are a lot of places that say, we like the way you work and we want more of that. That's happened quite a lot. So the work itself gets you work. And one of the things I say to the students, of course, is that if you work in private practice, or wherever you work, if you're good and you're doing this work well, you're bound to succeed.
It's absolutely true.
Yes, I mean, you know, but having TEXA accreditation effectively makes us, you know, a university status provider. Certainly your master's from Metavision Institute will be recognised at any university. So if you came out, if I was at Melbourne University and I was looking at intake of PhDs and someone applied to me with a master's in holistic psychotherapy from Metavision, I'd be very interested to see what their research proposal was for a PhD in meaning making.
A great deal of room for dramatic movement in process-oriented psychology. Not a lot of psychotherapies use movement a lot, and yet it's a powerful force, very powerful. It's not such a consciously controlled channel of awareness. So it's a very good one to move with. It's a very good one to work with someone in, to, you know, to
Absolutely
do things like this, you know, just sort of what's in this, what's in the movement.
Yeah, and in fact, I actually do use dance, and I'm not a dancer, but certainly my training in Metavision has taught me how to use dance and movement within the psychotherapy. So I'll quite often use it, and it is enormously powerful. So I think Metavision does actually give you the tools or the understanding of how that body movement and how all those things, as you quite rightly say, bypass the mind, which is always the thing that gets in the way. So no, I use it quite frequently when it's appropriate.
And I think that our framework would allow you to bring in, it can be an umbrella that allows you to bring everything that you've already got and make it more. That's what I find with process-oriented psychology. It's what I've done myself. I think what's important, what I want to encourage people to do is to make this work their own, out of your own background already, but to have a clear sort of path and structure that allows you to work with anything that comes towards you, actually. And that's why we don't need diagnosis and pathology as such, because we're unfolding what's present. Yes, you have the requirements to get into the graduate diploma or the master's program. If you've got an undergraduate degree, you're fine. Without foundational counselling skills, we do have a bridging course. The bridging course is a 7-week course with a 2-day face-to-face intensive, if COVID permits that. That's the only requirement. But if you've done any previous counselling training, you don't need to, or you don't need to. And with what you need to get into our higher education courses is an undergraduate degree and some counselling or doing our bridging course. The fees, the graduate diploma is $17,000 for the year, and to do the master's. So the first year of the master's is the graduate diploma as well. It's a nested course. And so the second year for the master's is a bit more than that. And I can't remember exactly what it is. It's not my department.
I think the total is about 36,000 and something.
Right. So it's less than, yes, something like that. Thank you for the 2 years. We don't have fee help yet, but we will be applying for it. And we can't say when we'll have that exactly. Jeff, any comment?
Yeah, that question came up in the chat thread, and Jane let us know that the application is in, and a piece of string indication would be we're hopeful to have it within 6 months, if that helps people.
Thank you.